Good evening, everybody. Tonight's theme is the 10 most creepy conspiracy theories about rock bottom. Before we dive into the video, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed to the channel and left a comment down below letting me know where you're watching from. Now, let's waste no more time and begin with the video. The Trap City Theory. At first glance, rock bottom is just another strange location in the world of SpongeBob SquarePants. A place far beneath the ocean floor, darker than Bikini Bottom, and filled with creatures who look and act differently from the friendly faces we know. But the more one studies rock bottom, the more unsettling it becomes. What if rock bottom isn't just a weird little town? What if it's something far more sinister? A trap designed to lure in the unsuspecting and make escape nearly impossible. The theory begins with the episode that introduced rock bottom. SpongeBob and Patrick, after a joyful day at Glove World, board a bus home. But SpongeBob, distracted as always, misses his chance to climb aboard with Patrick. He takes another bus, assuming it will take him back to Bikini Bottom. Instead, it plunges deeper into the ocean until it reaches rock bottom, a place so strange that even SpongeBob's boundless optimism begins to crack. At first, this feels like a simple mistake, a wrong bus line, a mix-up. But when SpongeBob tries to leave, something disturbing happens. He can't. Every attempt to board a bus back to Bikini Bottom ends in failure. No matter how fast he runs, how carefully he times his moves, the bus always pulls away. Sometimes it feels like the driver waits until SpongeBob is just about to step on, only to slam the doors shut and speed away. Here is where the trap theory takes shape. The buses don't simply run on a schedule. They appear to deliberately avoid letting SpongeBob leave. It's as though rock bottom itself wants to keep him. When you study the layout of rock bottom, this idea makes even more sense. The town has only one bus stop, a narrow platform in front of a looming jagged cliff. There are no alternate routes, no side exits, no signs pointing back toward Bikini Bottom. For all intents and purposes, the bus is the only way out. Yet that bus becomes SpongeBob's tormentor, a cruel trick that dangles freedom just out of reach. This is where fans began to speculate. What if rock bottom was never meant to be a normal city? What if it was constructed, or designed by nature itself, to act as a cage? The darkness of rock bottom is more than just a visual difference. Its oppressive shadows swallow everything, making navigation confusing. Its residents, with their flashlight-like appendages and rasping language, are so different from Bikini Bottomites that SpongeBob cannot communicate with them. Every social interaction makes him more isolated, more disoriented, and above all, the transportation system, BRMA, the one chance at escape, refuses him at every turn. Some conspiracy theorists argue that rock bottom acts like a spider's web. Once you stumble into it, you are stuck. The buses are like strands of silk. They appear to offer structure and direction, but they are really part of the trap. Visitors, caught in confusion and exhaustion, are slowly worn down until they accept their fate as new residents. Think about it. We never see a visitor successfully escape rock bottom by bus. SpongeBob eventually gives up, deciding to wait for the next one, a cycle that could repeat forever. And though he does make it out by sheer chance in the episode, fans argue this was not supposed to happen. SpongeBob escaped not because the system allowed it, but because he is the exception, the rare soul too stubborn or too lucky to be trapped. Adding fuel to this theory is how different Patrick's experience is. Patrick, who boards the bus before SpongeBob, is never seen again until much later. He makes it home without trouble. Why does Patrick escape so easily, while SpongeBob is ensnared? Perhaps the trap of rock bottom doesn't catch everyone, only those who meet a certain condition. Maybe the city chooses its victims. Even darker is the idea that rock bottom isn't just passively trapping outsiders, it is actively luring them in. The bus that SpongeBob boards doesn't just accidentally go there. Why would there even be a route from Glove World to rock bottom? An amusement park filled with outsiders and tourists seems like the perfect hunting ground. One wrong bus, one careless moment, and you're dragged down into the abyss. This leads to an unsettling possibility. Glove World may be connected to rock bottom. The bus line that runs between them might exist specifically to feed new victims into the trap. SpongeBob and Patrick, innocent thrill seekers at the park, were easy prey. Patrick escaped by accident, SpongeBob was not so lucky. Once you start to see rock bottom as a trap, other details in the episode take on new meaning. The language barrier, for example, prevents SpongeBob from asking for help. The odd architecture, jagged cliffs, tilted roads, eerie silence, is disorienting by design. Even the residents, who seem indifferent to SpongeBob's plight, may not be unfriendly so much as complicit. They don't help because they know no one leaves. Why bother? This theory has circulated online for years, and fans have pointed out how well it fits the episode's tone. Unlike other SpongeBob adventures, rock bottom is not a silly misadventure. It is uncomfortable, suspenseful, almost horror-like. The endless cycle of buses leaving, the mocking silence of the locals, the oppressive darkness, it feels like a nightmare, not a comedy. And nightmares, as we know, are often traps. So, what is rock bottom? A simple wrong turn at the bus stop? Or a carefully constructed snare designed to catch outsiders and make sure they never see Bikini Bottom again? The truth may never be confirmed, but the evidence is there. The buses that never stop, the one-way routes, the silence of the locals, the strange connection to Glove World, all of it builds the chilling picture of rock bottom not as a city, but as a prison. And SpongeBob, that night, nearly became its newest inmate. The bus driver conspiracy. In rock bottom, every path out leads back to the same place, the bus stop. For SpongeBob, this tiny platform becomes both his only hope and his greatest torment. But the more closely we examine his struggle, the clearer it becomes that the buses themselves are not neutral. They are not simply transportation, they are part of the trap, and the drivers are its gatekeepers. When SpongeBob first arrives in rock bottom, he does what any stranded traveler would do. He tries to catch a bus back home. But from the very beginning, something feels off. The first time he approaches the vehicle, the driver slams the doors shut and speeds away, ignoring him entirely. SpongeBob, confused but still optimistic, chalks it up to bad timing. He waits for the next one. But the pattern repeats. Again and again, SpongeBob reaches the bus just in time, only to be denied. Sometimes the bus pulls away as soon as he steps toward it. Other times it appears to wait until he's nearly there, almost mocking him, before vanishing in a blur of headlights and exhaust. At first, this plays as comedy, but when viewed through the lens of conspiracy, it becomes much darker. What if the drivers are not just careless? What if they are deliberately keeping SpongeBob from leaving? The bus driver conspiracy suggests that the entire transportation system of rock bottom is rigged to trap outsiders. The drivers are not employees working to take passengers home. They are wardens, guarding the city's only exit. By refusing service, they ensure that visitors never escape. The more SpongeBob struggles, the clearer this becomes. The bus is not a way out, it is bait. Consider the design of rock bottom. The city has no other visible exits. There are no roads that lead back to Bikini Bottom, no signs pointing to highways, no alternative routes. The entire geography funnels down to that single bus stop, and yet every driver behaves the same way. Not once does one stop for SpongeBob. Not once does anyone offer him a chance to leave. It is too consistent to be an accident. Fans have pointed out that Patrick, who boarded the bus earlier, had no problem leaving. He sat comfortably in his seat, smiling as the bus carried him away. Why was Patrick allowed to leave, but SpongeBob was not? One explanation is that the trap does not target everyone. Instead, the drivers choose their victims. For reasons unknown, SpongeBob was marked as someone who could not be allowed to escape. This raises unsettling questions. How do the drivers decide? Is it random, or is there something specific about certain passengers that makes them valuable to rock bottom? Perhaps newcomers who panic, who display confusion, are more likely to be targeted. Or perhaps SpongeBob's very nature, Burner's a sponge with boundless energy, made him stand out as prey. The driver's behavior itself is sinister. Their timing is uncanny, almost supernatural. The way they pull away just as SpongeBob arrives suggests that they are watching him, waiting for the perfect moment to deny him hope. Some theorists go further, arguing that the drivers are not even ordinary creatures, but agents of rock bottom itself, beings whose sole purpose is to keep outsiders trapped. This ties into another eerie detail, the complete lack of empathy from the locals. Not one resident intervenes to help SpongeBob catch a bus. They see him struggle, they hear his pleas, and yet they stand silent. Perhaps they know the truth. The buses are not meant to take him home. They are part of a system designed to confuse and imprison. Helping him would be pointless. One of the darkest interpretations of this theory suggests that the buses are one-way only. They can bring outsiders into rock bottom, but they will never take them back. This would explain why SpongeBob never succeeds, and why the buses seem almost hostile toward him. If this is true, then rock bottom isn't just a city, it's a funnel. A machine built to capture the lost and the unlucky, dragging them deeper into the abyss, with no return. The conspiracy takes on an even creepier tone when we look at the connection to Glove World. The bus SpongeBob boarded came directly from there. If rock bottom's buses are traps, then Glove World might be the bait. Families, tourists, and children flock to the park, unaware that one wrong bus could carry them straight into the jaws of rock bottom. The drivers, silent and unyielding, ensure that once you arrive, you never leave. There is also the possibility that the drivers are testing their victims. By forcing SpongeBob into a cycle of failure, they wear down his resolve. Each missed bus increases his despair, making him more likely to give up. Eventually, most visitors would stop trying. They would accept their new reality and become permanent residents of rock bottom. In this way, the drivers are not simply keeping outsiders trapped, they are conditioning them to stay. SpongeBob's relentless optimism is what makes his story different. He never fully accepts his fate. He keeps running, keeps trying, keeps believing that he will find a way home. In the end, it is this determination, not the cooperation of the bus drivers, that allows him to escape. But even this raises doubts. Did SpongeBob truly beat the system? Or did the drivers, seeing that he would never surrender, finally let him go? When you look at the evidence, the conspiracy becomes difficult to dismiss. The drivers are too precise, too consistent, too cruel to be innocent. Their actions are deliberate, their silence damning. They are not there to serve passengers. They are there to ensure rock bottom's victims never return. And if that is true, then the buses are not vehicles of escape at all. They are the bars of a cage. The time distortion theory. There is something uncanny about time in rock bottom. Anyone who has watched SpongeBob's desperate attempts to catch the bus will notice it. No matter how fast he runs, no matter how carefully he prepares, the timing is always against him. The doors slam shut a second too early. The engine roars to life the instant his hand reaches forward. Again and again, the buses leave just before he arrives, as though they are not operating on the same clock as he is. For most viewers, this is a comedic gag, the kind of slapstick misfortune that defines SpongeBob's character. But fans who dig deeper see something far more sinister. What if the buses are not simply rude, and SpongeBob is not simply unlucky? What if rock bottom itself is distorting time, creating a loop where escape is impossible? This is the essence of the time distortion theory. Let us begin with the most obvious clue: the impossible precision of the buses. In the real world, no system could operate with such cruel consistency. A bus might leave early once or twice, but not every single time, and not always at the exact moment a passenger is about to board. The fact that this happens to SpongeBob repeatedly suggests that something larger is at work. In rock bottom, time does not flow normally. Imagine it: a city where the clock runs just slightly faster or slower than in Bikini Bottom, a place where seconds don't match up, where the rhythm of life is out of sync with the rest of the ocean. To the locals, this is natural. Their internal clocks match the strange flow of their city. But to outsiders, like SpongeBob, it creates a maddening disconnect. He moves too quickly, or too slowly, always just out of step with the world around him. This explains why SpongeBob never makes it onto the bus. To him, it looks like he's on time. But from the driver's perspective, SpongeBob, locked into rock bottom's warped timeline, SpongeBob is always late. The bus leaves when it is supposed to, but because time flows differently for him, he arrives just after the window has closed. The theory becomes even more chilling when we consider the psychological impact of time distortion. Anyone stranded in rock bottom would slowly lose their sense of rhythm. They would wait for hours that felt like minutes, or minutes that stretched into hours. Their body clocks would become unreliable, their instincts useless. Trapped in a world where time betrays them, they would eventually give up trying to escape. And isn't that exactly what we see with SpongeBob? After countless failed attempts, he finally sits at the bus stop in exhaustion, muttering that he will just wait for the next one. His spirit is broken, not by physical barriers, but by the relentless failure of timing. It is as though rock bottom itself has worn him down, manipulating time to drain his will. There are other hints, too. The strange silence of rock bottom, 1919, broken only by the harsh, rasping language of its residents, creates the sensation that time is standing still. The endless night sky, the absence of sunlight, makes it impossible to measure the passing of hours. SpongeBob has no reference point, no anchor to tell him how long he has truly been there. For all we know, his short adventure could have lasted days, weeks, or even longer. Some fans even connect this theory to later appearances of rock bottom in the series. When SpongeBob visits again in Season 10, the town looks exactly the same. The same strange residents, the same gloomy atmosphere, the same oppressive silence. It is as if no time has passed there at all. While Bikini Bottom has moved forward, Rock Bottom remains frozen, unchanged, and eternal. This adds weight to the idea that Rock Bottom exists outside of normal time, a pocket of the ocean where the clock does not move forward in the same way. The implications are terrifying. If Rock Bottom distorts time, then those who enter may never truly leave. Even if they escape physically, they may return to a world that has aged without them. Imagine a traveler stepping onto the bus, believing only a night has passed, only to discover that years have gone by in Bikini Bottom. To everyone else, they have been missing for decades. To them, it was only hours. This is the cruel genius of the trap. Rock Bottom doesn't need walls or chains to imprison outsiders. It only needs time. By twisting the clock, it ensures that no one can ever escape at the right moment. Outsiders grow tired, confused, and disoriented until they give up. Those few who do make it out may never truly belong anywhere again, caught between timelines, forever out of step with the world they knew. SpongeBob, in his innocence, may have brushed against this horror without realizing it. To him, it was just a frustrating night of missed buses. But to those who watch closely, it was something more, a glimpse into a city where time itself conspires against you. And so, the question lingers. How many others have been lost to Rock Bottom's distorted hours? How many travelers are still there, waiting endlessly at the bus stop, convinced the next bus will take them home, never realizing that the clock is not on their side? Perhaps Rock Bottom's residents are not cruel or indifferent. Perhaps they are simply resigned. They know that once you arrive, time is no longer yours to command. They do not intervene because they understand the truth. You cannot fight the clock. You can only wait and wait and wait until you forget you ever wanted to leave at all. The segregation theory. Rock Bottom is strange enough on its own. The jagged cliffs, the endless night sky, the eerie silence, and the rasping language of its residents. But one theory suggests that its oddity is not natural at all. Rock Bottom, some believe, is not simply another town, segregated zone, deliberately set aside as a place of exile for creatures who are not welcome in Bikini Bottom or other civilized areas of the ocean. In this version of the story, Rock Bottom becomes something even darker than a trap. It becomes a prison without walls, a city built to isolate, contain, and erase those who do not fit into the bright, happy world above. The evidence begins with the design of Rock Bottom itself. Unlike Bikini Bottom, which is bustling with shops, houses, and friendly neighbors, Rock Bottom has almost nothing familiar. Its architecture is harsh and angular, like natural barriers meant to confuse and intimidate. Its bus stop is the only way in or out, suggesting controlled access, and its residents are so physically different from other sea creatures that they almost seem to belong to another species entirely. Why such a stark difference? One answer is that Rock Bottom was created as a place to house those who were deemed too strange, too dangerous, or too undesirable for the rest of society. The locals' glowing eyes and harsh accents are not random quirks. They are markers of exile. These are the forgotten people of the ocean, abandoned to live at the very bottom of the sea where no one else will bother them. If this is true, then SpongeBob's arrival is not just a mistake. It is a violation of the invisible boundary between worlds. To the locals, he is an outsider intruding on their exile, a reminder of the world that cast them out. Their silence toward him, their cold stares, may not just be indifference, it may be resentment. He is not meant to be there. He does not belong. This theory gains strength when we consider the behavior of the buses. Patrick, a starfish who blends in easily with society, boards his bus and returns home without trouble. But SpongeBob, with his loud personality and childlike innocence, is denied again and again. What if the buses are not random at all? What if the drivers are enforcing segregation, ensuring that those who cross into rock bottom do not return? Think about the episode. SpongeBob waves his bus ticket at the driver, showing he has every right to leave. Yet the driver ignores him. Why? Because rights mean nothing in rock bottom. The rules are different here. If the buses are controlled by the same system that enforces exile, then it makes sense that they would refuse to carry outsiders back to freedom. SpongeBob, once he steps into rock bottom, becomes just another prisoner. The segregation theory becomes even more disturbing when you realize what it implies about Bikini Bottom. If rock bottom is a place of exile, then someone had to decide who gets sent there. Someone, at some point in history, created the boundary and began banishing creatures to the depths. Was it the government of Bikini Bottom? Was it an ancient society that built the bus lines to shuttle undesirables away? Or was it a natural process where society slowly pushed the others further and further down until they were forgotten? The unsettling truth is that SpongeBob himself almost becomes one of them. Stranded, ignored, and unable to leave, he is treated no differently than the residents of rock bottom. In the eyes of the system, once he is there, he belongs there. His attempts to argue, to waive his ticket, to protest that he is not meant to be there, all of it is dismissed. The system does not care. Rock bottom does not release its prisoners. Some fans even suggest that this is why the locals make no effort to help SpongeBob. To them, his cries for help are nothing new. They have heard them before, from others who stumbled into rock bottom and begged to leave. They know the truth. No one leaves. Their silence is not cruelty, but resignation. They do not help him because they know it is pointless. But why were these creatures exiled in the first place? Here, the theory diverges into two possibilities. The first is that the residents of rock bottom are simply too strange, too alien in appearance and behavior to be accepted in Bikini Bottom. Their glowing eyes, angular bodies, and strange language mark them as other, and so they were cast out. In this reading, rock bottom becomes a chilling metaphor for prejudice, a city of outcasts forced into isolation because they did not fit in. The second possibility is darker still, that the residents of rock bottom are dangerous. Perhaps they were criminals, scientists gone too far, or mutated experiments. Their exile was not just prejudice, but punishment. Rock bottom, then, is not simply a neighborhood of the unwanted. It is a quarantine zone, meant to contain those who pose a threat. SpongeBob, by entering, accidentally stumbled into a prison designed for far more dangerous creatures than him. Either interpretation makes the episode's events far more disturbing. What appears to be a funny story about a sponge missing his bus becomes a glimpse into a system of exile and control lurking beneath the happy surface of Bikini Bottom. The buses, the silence, the isolation, all of it makes sense if rock bottom was never meant to be escaped. The segregation theory leaves us with one final question. How many others were trapped before SpongeBob? How many families were torn apart when one member disappeared into rock bottom and never returned? Do the residents above even know what happens? Or is rock bottom a secret shame hidden at the edges of their world? SpongeBob's escape becomes, in this light, not a silly stroke of luck, but a rare miracle. He is one of the very few to break free from a system designed to hold people forever. But for the others, the residents who stared at him in silence, there is no escape. They are the forgotten ones, erased by time and memory, living in the eternal night of rock bottom. And perhaps that is the darkest truth of all. Rock bottom does not simply trap outsiders. It erases them, folding them into its segregated silence, until no one remembers they were ever part of the world above. The language barrier theory. When SpongeBob first arrives in rock bottom, his panic is not only about the darkness, the jagged cliffs, or the endless buses that refuse him. What unsettles him even more is his inability to communicate. The residents of Rock Bottom do not speak the same bubbly language as the creatures of Bikini Bottom. Instead, their words are punctuated with harsh, wet raspberries, guttural noises that sound alien to SpongeBob's ears. It's played for laughs in the episode. SpongeBob can't even ask for a bus schedule without getting strange looks or nonsensical responses. But when we take a closer look, this detail feels far more sinister. What if the language barrier is not just a cultural quirk? What if it is part of the trap? This is the essence of the language barrier theory, that Rock Bottom's unique dialect was created or maintained specifically to isolate outsiders, to ensure that anyone who falls into the city cannot ask for help, cannot plead for escape, and cannot find comfort in human connection. Consider the impact of communication on survival. In Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob can rely on the kindness of strangers, the guidance of his friends, or even a simple conversation to find his way. In Rock Bottom, all of that is stripped from him. Every attempt to speak is met with confusion or annoyance. Even when someone seems to understand, their words are so distorted by raspberries and strange rhythms that SpongeBob cannot process them. This creates not just isolation, but helplessness. It is one thing to be trapped physically, but another to be trapped linguistically. The inability to communicate makes SpongeBob's struggle all the more hopeless. He cannot explain his problem. He cannot ask for directions. He cannot plead for sympathy. He is silenced by the very structure of Rock Bottom society. Some fans argue that this language is no accident. They point out that language evolves naturally as a tool of inclusion and exclusion. Dialects create in-groups and out-groups, marking who belongs and who does not. In Rock Bottom, the raspberry dialect functions as a wall. It is the invisible barrier that keeps outsiders alienated until they give up and accept their fate. Even more unsettling is the idea that the locals deliberately maintain this barrier. In most places, when outsiders arrive, locals make some effort to bridge the gap. But in Rock Bottom, there is no such attempt. No one slows their speech for SpongeBob. No one teaches him the simplest words. Instead, they watch in silence as he stumbles and struggles. This suggests not ignorance, but intent. The residents know that by keeping the language opaque, they keep outsiders powerless. One chilling interpretation suggests that the raspberry language is not even natural, but artificial. Perhaps it was created long ago as a code, a cipher designed to prevent outsiders from ever integrating. In this reading, Rock Bottom is less a town and more a controlled community, where language itself is the lock on the cage. Only those born within can speak it fluently, and only those who speak it belong. Everyone else is doomed to wander, mute, and misunderstood. For SpongeBob, this is perhaps the most terrifying part of his journey. Physical barriers can be overcome with effort, and even time distortion can be endured with patience. But the language barrier strikes at the core of identity. If you cannot speak, you cannot belong. If you cannot understand, you are forever alone. And Rock Bottom's residents seem to revel in this. Notice how they react to SpongeBob. They are not angry. They are not mocking. They are simply indifferent, as if they have seen this all before. Outsiders arrive, flail helplessly against the wall of communication, and eventually give up. The locals have no reason to intervene. They know the barrier will do the work for them. Some fans even connect this theory to the allegorical layer of Rock Bottom, DSA, that the city represents the immigrant experience, where newcomers face hostility and confusion in an unfamiliar world. But in the darker conspiracy version, the language barrier is not an accident of culture. It is a weapon. It is part of the trap that ensures outsiders never feel welcome, never adapt, and never escape. The eeriest part of this theory is what it implies about those who came before SpongeBob. Surely he is not the first outsider to stumble into Rock Bottom. How many others tried to ask for help, only to be silenced by the raspberries? How many shouted, pleaded, begged for directions, only to be met with cold stares? Over time, perhaps some of them stopped trying. They fell silent, their voices swallowed by the barrier, until they became indistinguishable from the locals themselves. And that may be the ultimate fate of Rock Bottom's prisoners, not death, but assimilation. Stripped of their language, their culture, and their hope, they fade into the silent crowd of residents, forgotten by the world above. SpongeBob nearly became one of them, his voice drowned in raspberries, his pleas unanswered, his identity erased. The episode ends with SpongeBob making it home, but imagine if he had not. Imagine him waiting at the bus stop for years, unable to ask for help, unable to explain his plight. Over time, his own speech might have shifted, his words breaking down into the rasping nonsense of the locals. One day, a new outsider would arrive, confused and scared, and SpongeBob would stare at them in silence, just another resident of Rock Bottom, watching the trap claim its next victim. In this way, the language barrier theory is perhaps the most horrifying of all. Because it does not trap you with walls or buses or clocks, it traps you with silence. It ensures that even when you scream, no one will ever hear you. The ancient civilization theory. To most, Rock Bottom is just a bizarre little town, an oddity hidden at the deepest part of the sea. But what if it is much more than that? What if Rock Bottom is not just another settlement, but the ruins of something far older, a civilization that existed long before Bikini Bottom was ever built? This is the core of the ancient civilization theory. Rock Bottom's strange design, its eerie residence, and its isolation are all remnants of a forgotten age in the ocean's history. A time when the deep sea was home to a culture unlike anything SpongeBob or his friends could understand. Let us begin with the geography. The jagged cliffs, tilted pathways, and towering shadows of Rock Bottom look nothing like the soft sand and cheerful coral of Bikini Bottom. The environment feels unnatural, almost architectural, as though the land itself was carved or shaped by design. Some fans believe these features are the remnants of structures long since eroded. What SpongeBob sees as random rocks may, in fact, be the broken skeletons of temples, walls, or monuments from an ancient underwater society. The bus stop itself is another clue. It is a solitary structure, standing at the edge of the abyss, with no other visible infrastructure around it. Why would a bus stop exist there, unless it was once part of something larger? Perhaps it was built atop the ruins of a transport hub that connected Rock Bottom to other deep-sea settlements. A hub that has long since crumbled into silence. The residents, too, support this theory. Unlike the bright, cartoony designs of Bikini Bottomites, Rock Bottom's creatures are angular, elongated, and alien. Their glowing eyes suggest adaptation to darkness, and their strange dialect implies a language that has survived unchanged for generations. They seem less like modern citizens and more like the descendants of an older people, carrying forward the traditions of a forgotten era. Some fans speculate that these residents may even remember the age before Bikini Bottom. Their silence toward outsiders is not indifference but weariness, the detachment of a culture that has outlived its time. To them, SpongeBob's frantic attempts to leave are nothing new. They have seen countless outsiders stumble into their city, creatures from a younger world that does not understand the weight of history pressing down in Rock Bottom. The eternal darkness of Rock Bottom adds to this interpretation. Unlike Bikini Bottom, which experiences daylight, Rock Bottom is locked in perpetual night. This may be a metaphor for its timelessness, or even literal evidence that it lies at a depth so great that sunlight has never touched it. If true, then Rock Bottom could represent one of the oldest inhabited regions of the ocean, a place that has existed since long before surface life took shape. There are even those who argue that Rock Bottom was once a thriving capital of the sea. The strange raspberries of its language might be echoes of a once universal dialect, long since abandoned by the rest of the ocean's people. Bikini Bottomites, in this reading, are the descendants of those who left, who rose closer to the surface to build a new society, leaving Rock Bottom behind to stagnate in the abyss. If this is true, then the indifference of Rock Bottom's residents takes on new meaning. To them, SpongeBob is not a prisoner but a trespasser, an unwelcome reminder of the people who abandoned them ages ago. The buses do not leave him behind out of cruelty, but out of policy. Outsiders are not welcome. Outsiders are not allowed to leave with knowledge of the city. Outsiders must be kept away, lest the upper world rediscover what was left behind. Some conspiracy theorists even connect Rock Bottom to larger mysteries in the SpongeBob universe. They point out that Bikini Bottom itself was shaped by human influence. The Krusty Krab, for instance, is a repurposed lobster trap, and Goo Lagoon is polluted by surface activity. Could it be that Rock Bottom predates this interference? Could it be one of the last untouched remnants of a pre-human ocean? A place that remembers a time before the sea was altered by radiation and waste? If so, then rock bottom is not just ancient, it is sacred, a living fossil of a world forgotten by time. And perhaps this is why it resists outsiders. It does not want to be rediscovered. It does not want to be understood. It wants to remain hidden, eternal, unchanged. This theory also reframes SpongeBob's escape. When he finally manages to return to Bikini Bottom, it is not because he beat the system, but because rock bottom allowed it. The ancient city, seeing that SpongeBob posed no threat, released him. But had he lingered longer, had he learned too much, perhaps the city would have kept him forever, adding him to its population of silent, forgotten residents. And so, rock bottom becomes not just a trap, but a relic. A reminder that beneath the bright and silly world of SpongeBob lies something far older, far darker, and far more mysterious. A civilization that refuses to die, clinging to its traditions in the endless night, guarding its secrets from the world above. When SpongeBob stumbled into rock bottom, he did more than miss a bus stop. He brushed against history itself, a history that most of the ocean has long forgotten. And if the theory is true, then rock bottom will remain there, waiting in silence, until the next outsider stumbles in and discovers the weight of the past pressing down on them. The Glove World Connection Theory. On the surface, Glove World is the happiest place in the sea. A cheerful amusement park filled with rides, games, balloon animals, and cotton candy. It's the kind of place where SpongeBob and Patrick feel most at home. But conspiracy theorists have long noticed something strange about the rock bottom episode. SpongeBob doesn't simply stumble into the abyss on his own. His descent begins at Glove World. And this has led to one of the most disturbing ideas in SpongeBob lore. What if Glove World and rock bottom are secretly connected? The evidence is subtle but hard to ignore. After a long day of fun, SpongeBob and Patrick wait at the bus stop just outside the park. It should have been a routine ride back to Bikini Bottom. But somehow, SpongeBob ends up on a bus that doesn't take him home. It takes him straight down into rock bottom. Why would a bus route from Glove World lead there in the first place? After all, rock bottom is not a vacation spot. It has no attractions, no hotels, no tourist appeal of any kind. Its streets are empty, its residents are silent, and its only bus stop seems designed to frustrate and trap. Who, exactly, is that route for? This is where the theory takes hold. The bus is not a mistake, it's bait. Think about it. Glove World attracts families, tourists, and thrill seekers from all over the ocean. It is the perfect hunting ground for rock bottom. Outsiders are relaxed, distracted, their guards lowered by the bright lights of the amusement park. All it takes is one wrong bus, one moment of confusion, and they are swept away into the abyss. Patrick escapes by accident, boarding the first bus without hesitation. But SpongeBob, delayed by his balloon, is the one who falls into the trap. This suggests that rock bottom is not meant to capture everyone, only those who are careless, unlucky, or singled out. Glove World, then, becomes the lure. It gathers potential victims in one place, funnels them toward the bus stop, and waits for the mistake that sends them spiraling into rock bottom's clutches. The connection between the two places runs deeper when you think about their atmospheres. Glove World and rock bottom are opposites, almost like mirror images. Glove World is loud, colorful, chaotic, filled with laughter and noise. Rock bottom is silent, dark, and oppressive. Glove World overwhelms you with stimulation. Rock bottom drowns you in emptiness. Together, they form a perfect cycle, a high of joy, immediately followed by a plunge into despair. Could this be deliberate? Some theorists suggest that Glove World was built specifically to feed rock bottom. Its location near the bus line is no coincidence. It is a brightly lit trap, designed to attract outsiders who will eventually stumble into the abyss. In this sense, Glove World and rock bottom are not separate at all. They are two halves of the same machine, one to lure, one to imprison. Others point out that Glove World itself is unsettling if you look closely. Its mascots are faceless gloves, cheerful but hollow. Its attractions are strange and unsettling, almost mocking in their silliness. To SpongeBob and Patrick, it is delightful. But to outsiders, it might feel eerie, as though something is off beneath the surface. Perhaps that is the point. Glove World disorients visitors just enough that when they leave, They are easy prey for the rock bottom bus line. The bus stop outside Glove World is the smoking gun of this theory. Why is it placed there, so conveniently for SpongeBob and Patrick to stumble upon? And why is there a direct line to rock bottom of all places? It makes no sense unless the stop was designed to be there, a hidden doorway disguised as public transportation. This also reframes SpongeBob's experience. He thinks he is going home. He thinks the bus is routine. But the system was never meant to bring him home. From the moment he left Glove World, his fate was already sealed. He was meant to go down. Some even speculate that Glove World's owners know about this arrangement. Perhaps they struck a deal long ago. In exchange for prosperity, they allow Rock Bottom to claim a steady stream of victims from their park. After all, Glove World never seems to close, never seems to struggle, and always has a steady flow of customers. Could its success be built on the silent partnership with the Abyss? The eeriest part of this theory is what it implies about how many others have fallen. SpongeBob is not the first to leave Glove World on the wrong bus. How many tourists vanished after a day of rides, never to be seen again? How many families returned home, missing a member, unable to explain where they went? To the outside world, these disappearances might be written off as accidents, but in truth, they are the hidden cost of Glove World's cheerful facade. And what about Patrick? Why was he spared while SpongeBob was not? Some believe it was sheer luck. Others think Rock Bottom deliberately targets those who are more vulnerable, those who are distracted, hesitant, or isolated. SpongeBob, fumbling with his balloon, was easy prey. Patrick, oblivious but decisive, slipped past unnoticed. In the end, SpongeBob makes it out, but only barely. His escape feels like a mistake, an oversight in the system. For a moment, the trap failed, but the connection between Glove World and Rock Bottom remains, waiting for the next visitor, the next careless tourist, the next victim. This theory transforms Glove World from a place of joy into something far darker. It is not just an amusement park. It is the front door to Rock Bottom, a brightly lit lure, drawing in the unsuspecting, feeding them into the abyss, one bus at a time. And the next time SpongeBob visits Glove World, smiling and carefree, one has to wonder, does he realize how close he came to never leaving? The experiment theory. When SpongeBob first sets foot in Rock Bottom, one detail is impossible to ignore. The residents don't look like anyone he has ever seen in Bikini Bottom. Their bodies are long and angular, their faces stretched and distorted, their eyes glowing like deep-sea lanterns. They walk with jerky movements and speak in that bizarre raspberry-laden dialect that makes communication almost impossible. To most viewers, these differences are simply cartoon exaggeration, a way to make Rock Bottom feel foreign and funny. But for some fans, these unsettling traits hint at something far darker. What if the residents of Rock Bottom aren't just another community of sea creatures? What if they are experiments gone wrong, mutations, and failed creations abandoned at the bottom of the sea? The experiment theory suggests that Rock Bottom is not a natural settlement, but a dumping ground. The creatures who live there were not born free, but made. Perhaps by surface scientists conducting deep-sea research, perhaps by ancient inventors experimenting with radiation or chemical spills, or perhaps by forces even stranger, alien meddling, or magic from the ocean's darkest depths. Whatever the origin, the result is the same: a population of misfits too altered to live anywhere else. Consider the glowing eyes. In biology, bioluminescence is common in deep-sea fish, but rarely in shallow-water creatures. Why do the Rock Bottom residents glow, when SpongeBob and his friends do not? Could this be an engineered trait? A failed attempt at adaptation that left them permanently alien? Their flashlight-like faces are practical in the eternal night of Rock Bottom, but unsettling in appearance. The mark of creatures not fully natural. Then there is their language. It doesn't sound like any known underwater dialect in the SpongeBob universe. Instead, it is harsh, broken, filled with raspberries and guttural tones. Some fans believe this is not a language at all, but the result of vocal cords damaged by mutation. In other words, they do not speak that way by choice. They speak that way because they cannot speak normally. Their bodies have been altered so profoundly that communication itself has become warped. This also explains their indifference to SpongeBob. When he waves his bus ticket and begs for help, they do nothing. To them, he is just another victim, another outsider who doesn't belong. But deeper still, perhaps they recognize something familiar in him, the desperation of someone who has been dropped into rock bottom against his will. They have lived that same story. They, too, were once outsiders, left behind in the abyss with no hope of returning. And what about the buses? If the residents are failed experiments, then rock bottom itself may be a containment zone. The buses are not public transportation, but supply lines, controlled systems, designed to ensure no one leaves. They bring outsiders in, perhaps to study how they react to the environment. Those who survive become permanent residents. Those who don't are forgotten. The drivers, silent and cold, are not chauffeurs but guards, enforcing the boundaries of the experiment. The eeriest part of this theory is the implication that rock bottom is not unique. If scientists, surface dwellers, or ancient beings created this place, then it may not be the only one. There could be other rock bottoms, other hidden cities across the ocean, each filled with failed experiments left to rot in isolation. SpongeBob just happened to stumble into one of them. Fans point to other episodes as possible connections. The strange, mutated fish of Glove World, the bizarre creatures of Goo Lagoon, even the Flying Dutchman himself, all could be linked to a larger history of experiments gone wrong. Rock bottom might be the most extreme example. A city where an entire population has been abandoned together, allowed to build a strange, broken society of their own. There is even a darker possibility, that the residents of rock bottom were once normal. Maybe they lived in Bikini Bottom, or another nearby town, before something terrible happened. A chemical spill, a nuclear leak, a magical curse. Whatever the cause, it twisted their bodies and voices, forcing them into exile. Rock bottom then becomes not just a dumping ground, but a graveyard of lost identity. Every silent resident is a reminder of what they once were, before they were changed forever. This reading makes SpongeBob's experience even more chilling. To him, the residents are strange, alien, frightening, but perhaps they see him as what they used to be, bright, cheerful, unmutated. They do not help him because they know the truth. Once you enter rock bottom, you will eventually become one of them. The trap is not just about geography or buses. The trap is transformation. Imagine SpongeBob waiting too long at that bus stop. Days turn into weeks. His body, exposed to whatever force lingers in rock bottom, begins to change. His square shape stretches. His voice warps into raspberries. His eyes begin to glow. Slowly but surely, he becomes a resident of rock bottom himself. By the time another outsider arrives, SpongeBob would no longer be SpongeBob. He would be silent, staring, indifferent, just another victim who has forgotten his past. The experiment theory reframes rock bottom from a quirky town to something much more horrifying. It is not just a place. It is a laboratory, a containment zone, a reminder that the ocean holds secrets that should never be disturbed. And perhaps this is why SpongeBob escaped. Not because the buses failed, not because he was lucky, but because the forces that created rock bottom realized he did not belong there. He was not yet ready to become one of them, so they let him go, for now. But the question remains, how many others were not so lucky? How many creatures went to Glove World, boarded the wrong bus, and never came home, their identities swallowed by the abyss, their voices drowned in raspberries, their bodies reshaped into something unrecognizable? Rock bottom may look like a city, but if this theory is true, it is something far worse, a cage for failed creations, a graveyard of experiments that were never meant to exist. The purgatory theory. For SpongeBob, rock bottom is unlike anywhere else he has ever been. The dark skies, the jagged cliffs, the endless silence, everything about it feels alien. But some fans argue that this is because rock bottom isn't a real place at all. It isn't a town, or a bus stop, or even a physical location. Instead, it is something far more unsettling, a kind of purgatory, a limbo where lost souls are trapped, suspended between two worlds. At first, this might sound extreme. After all, SpongeBob eventually returns home, but when you look closely at the details of the episode, the purgatory theory begins to make sense. Consider the way SpongeBob arrives in rock bottom. He doesn't swim there or walk there, he simply takes the wrong bus. In an instant, he is pulled deeper and deeper into the ocean, far below anywhere he has ever gone before. The descent feels less like a commute and more like a passage into another realm. The waters grow darker, the silence grows heavier, and SpongeBob finds himself in a place that does not follow the same rules as Bikini Bottom. That descent, many fans argue, mirrors the classic journey into the underworld. In myth and literature, characters often fall, descend, or are carried into a liminal space, in miastus, a world between life and death, between safety and danger, between belonging and isolation. Rock Bottom fits this mold perfectly. It is not the world SpongeBob knows, but it is not quite death either. It is something in between. The endless night sky supports this idea. In Rock Bottom, there is no sun, no moon, no rhythm of day and night. Time feels suspended, eternal. This is a hallmark of purgatory, a place where the clock does not move forward, where the soul is trapped in an endless cycle of waiting. SpongeBob experiences this firsthand at the bus stop, where no matter how long he waits, his ride home never seems to arrive. He is frozen in a loop, unable to progress, unable to escape. The residents of Rock Bottom also add to this unsettling interpretation. They do not seem hostile, but they do not seem alive in the way Bikini Bottomites do. They stare, they shuffle, they speak in broken raspberries. They are present, but detached, like shadows or echoes of real beings. Some fans suggest that they are not residents at all, but lost souls who wandered into purgatory long ago and have since forgotten who they were. Their silence toward SpongeBob is not cruelty, but emptiness. They no longer remember what it feels like to help, to connect, to belong. The buses themselves become symbolic in this reading. They are not mere vehicles, but ferrymen carrying souls between realms. Yet for SpongeBob, the buses are always just out of reach. He runs, he leaps, he begs, but he never makes it aboard. The doors slam in his face every time, as though the ferryman is refusing him passage. This echoes myths of souls who are denied entry to the afterlife, forced to linger in limbo until they are deemed ready to move on. Even the language barrier gains new meaning. The raspberries are not a dialect, but the broken voices of the lost. To SpongeBob, their words are incomprehensible, because he does not belong there. He is not dead, not lost, not truly one of them. He is a living soul caught in a world meant for the forgotten. The purgatory theory reframes SpongeBob's escape as well. When he finally does make it out of Rock Bottom, it is not because he succeeded on his own, but because he was released. In this reading, the forces of purgatory judged him and found him unworthy of staying. He still had more to do, more to live for. And so, unlike the silent residents around him, he was allowed to return to the world of the living. This interpretation explains why Rock Bottom never seems to change. When SpongeBob visits again in later seasons, the place looks exactly the same. The same residents shuffle in silence. The same night sky hangs above. Nothing has aged, nothing has shifted, because purgatory is eternal. It does not move forward, it does not progress. It simply exists, waiting for the next soul to stumble in. It also explains why SpongeBob feels so uncomfortable there. Usually, SpongeBob's optimism can brighten even the darkest places, but in Rock Bottom, his joy falters. He grows desperate, exhausted, hopeless. This is because purgatory is designed to strip you of hope, to test whether you can endure endless waiting. SpongeBob nearly breaks under the pressure, muttering that he will just wait for the next one, a sign that his spirit is fading. If not for his eventual release, he may have stayed there forever, another lost soul at the bus stop. Some fans take this theory even further, suggesting that Rock Bottom is not just SpongeBob's purgatory, but a universal one. Anyone who takes the wrong bus, or makes the wrong choice, risks being pulled into this limbo. The residents are not unique, but countless souls from across the ocean, each trapped in their own cycle of waiting. Rock Bottom is not a city. It is a collection of purgatories, overlapping in silence, each one holding those who have lost their way. The most chilling implication is this: maybe SpongeBob did not escape at all. Maybe when he left Rock Bottom, he did not return to Bikini Bottom as he knew it. Maybe he entered a different version, a slightly altered world that looks the same but is not. After all, how would he know? If purgatory can twist time and space, who is to say that the Bikini Bottom he returned to is the one he left? Whether or not this is true, the purgatory theory captures why rock bottom feels so different from every other place in SpongeBob's world. It is not simply a town. It is a state of being, a place where time stops, where voices break, where hope fades, and where the buses never come. For SpongeBob, it was a nightmare. For the residents, it is eternity. The gatekeeper theory. Throughout SpongeBob's journey into rock bottom, one question lingers. Why does this place exist at all? The darkness, the alien residents, the endless bus system, none of it feels accidental. The other theories we've explored suggest rock bottom as a trap, a prison, or even purgatory. But there is one final possibility, one that makes rock bottom more terrifying than ever before. Rock bottom is not the destination, it is the gate. This is the gatekeeper theory. The idea is simple, yet chilling. Rock bottom exists to keep outsiders from discovering what lies deeper beneath the ocean floor. It is not just a city, but a barrier. The strange geography, the endless buses, the alien residents, the oppressive silence, all of it serves a single purpose: to stop travelers from going further down. Consider the layout of rock bottom. The jagged cliffs and slanted pathways do not seem to lead anywhere. The bus stop sits at the edge of a vast abyss, as though guarding the entrance to something unseen. Why place a stop here at all, unless it is meant to keep people from venturing any deeper? Perhaps the buses do not exist to take passengers out, but to make sure no one passes through. The behavior of the buses supports this. They arrive constantly, but never when SpongeBob needs them. They do not carry him home, but they do carry others in. What if the buses are not for passengers at all, but for containment? They shuffle newcomers into rock bottom, ensuring that anyone who descends never makes it beyond the gates. By trapping outsiders here, rock bottom prevents them from reaching whatever lies below. The residents, too, take on a new role under this theory. Their silence, their indifference, their strange language, their every self. All of it could be explained if they are not citizens, but guardians. They are not meant to help SpongeBob. They are meant to confuse him, to keep him distracted, to ensure he never makes it past their watch. Their flashlight-like eyes become tools for surveillance, scanning the shadows for intruders. Their raspberries are not a dialect, but a code, a secret language only the gatekeepers can understand. This explains why the residents do not try to remove SpongeBob. They do not chase him out, nor do they imprison him. Instead, they let him wander in circles, caught in a loop of failed attempts. To them, he is not dangerous, not yet. As long as he remains confused and helpless, he will never get past the threshold. And if he grows too curious, the buses will ensure he never leaves. But what, exactly, lies beyond rock bottom? This is where the theories diverge into unsettling possibilities. Some believe that below rock bottom is a deeper ocean realm, darker and stranger than anything seen in SpongeBob's world. Perhaps it is a place of monstrous creatures, ancient beings that even the residents of rock bottom fear. In this reading, rock bottom serves as a buffer zone, keeping the horrors of the abyss from spilling upward into the rest of the sea. Outsiders are not just trapped for their own sake, they are trapped to prevent them from disturbing something far worse. Others suggest a more human explanation. Perhaps rock bottom guards the remnants of human experimentation, a facility buried deep in the ocean floor where radiation, chemicals, or strange technologies twisted sea life into unrecognizable forms. If outsiders reach this place, they might uncover secrets not meant to be known, proof of human interference, or evidence of crimes long buried. Rock bottom then becomes a cover-up, a living firewall designed to keep these truths hidden. There are even those who believe rock bottom hides a spiritual realm. If Chapter 9's purgatory theory is true, then perhaps rock bottom is not the final stage, but the waiting room before something greater. The abyss below could be the true underworld of the sea, a place no one is meant to see until their time has come. Rock bottom's role is to ensure that the living never descend into that forbidden darkness. Whatever lies beneath, the implications are chilling. Rock bottom is not a mistake, not an accident, not even an exile. It is deliberate. Every feature, the endless buses, the jagged cliffs, the silent residents, is designed to protect a secret. The city does not exist to house its people. It exists to guard what lies below. This reframes SpongeBob's journey in terrifying ways. When he stumbles into rock bottom, he is not just lost, he is trespassing on sacred ground. The buses ignore him not to mock him, but to prevent him from leaving with knowledge of the gate. The residents watch him not with apathy, but with vigilance. Every step he takes brings him closer to a truth he is not meant to see. And yet, SpongeBob escapes. By sheer determination, or by accident, he finds his way back to Bikini Bottom. But perhaps this was not a failure of the system. Perhaps it was a choice. The gatekeepers, seeing that SpongeBob was innocent, harmless, and oblivious, allowed him to leave. He did not uncover the secret. He did not pass the threshold. He could be released without risk. The same might not be true for others. Those who wander too far, who peer too deeply into the abyss, may never be allowed to return. They vanish into rock bottom, swallowed not by accident, but by design. To the world above, they are simply missing. To the residents of rock bottom, they are trespassers neutralized before they reach the gate. This is why rock bottom feels so heavy, so oppressive, so different from everywhere else in SpongeBob's world. It is not a city, it is a threshold, a final warning to turn back before you go too far. And perhaps that is why the episode remains so haunting. SpongeBob thought he was simply missing his bus, but in truth, he brushed against a cosmic secret, one that most will never know exists. He stood at the gates of something vast and terrible, and for a brief moment the abyss stared back at him.